Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to Q&D number 7. Kind of festive edition, well not really festive in content, it's just I happen to be recording this on Christmas Eve, so happy holidays wherever you are, and I hope your 2015 is even better than your 2014 has been, and that kind of covers all eventualities I hope, because your 2014 might have been rubbish, in which case that still works, right? Anyway. Yeah, it's been about 2.5 months since I've last done one of these. That's not really intentional, it's just I hadn't realised how long it had been. And I don't think this is going to be too long of a video because there aren't that many questions. I'm just looking at the list now and it's definitely not as long as last time. So yeah, without further ado, we'll plough right in and try and get some of these questions answered. So the first one up is from regular Terry Balfour, who asks... Well, we've had some book-related questions in the last couple, and he asks, what 10 graphic novels would I take? And actually, oh, so I'm just knocking my lamp all over the place. That's very professional of me. I actually have a big pile here. So, I don't know if I can pick 10. It depends if I'm allowed to take multi-part ones, because some of the ones I mean, my favourite one of all is the first one I'm going to mention, and that's, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. And I like the film as well, but I've got all the graphic novels, and I think they're really, really good. They're pretty damn... the art is superb. It's Miyazaki's magnum opus, really, I think you could honestly say, and it has some really nice... Just look at the art on that. This is just in the first volume. I just love these. I've had these for years. I periodically reread them because I just think it's a fantastic story. And if you thought the film was interesting, the film really doesn't do the whole story justice, because of course the film was actually it was kind of the first of the Studio Ghibli films in a way. I don't think Studio Ghibli as such existed at that point, but it was kind of like Studio Ghibli came out off the back of Nausicaa, and I think he'd written maybe the first 2 volumes at that point, and he kind of finished the rest. You know, it was a several years undertaking, this particular story, so it really does get a lot more depth and complexity than the film ever did. So yeah, I would recommend that's a recommendation for everyone. I really like that if you can find the translated copies. And of course, being Japanese, you have to ordinarily you'd open it from that side, but of course you have to read it sort of back to front, which is a little bit confusing at first. But on the other hand, if you're used to reading Japanese comics, then that wouldn't be a thing at all. Another couple I've got that I want to mention. Where are we? I've got a couple of volumes of these. This is actually the very first volume, the collected case files of Judge Dredd, and this is number 01. And I don't even know what they're up till now, but it's basically, it's not so much a trade paperback. Wow, that's what I meant to say. It's not so much a graphic novel as a trade paperback, because they are trade paperbacks. They're just the collected serial stories of Judge Dredd over the years, and I'm a big fan of the Judge Dredd comics, and there's some cracking stuff in there. There's lots of little short silly ones as well, but it covers all the kind of early epic arcs, and you can buy the stories as like self-contained volumes, but I went instead for the trade paperbacks because it covers a lot more stuff than just the big multi-part series like the Armageddon War is a very famous one. So yeah, Judge Dredd. I don't actually have any other 2000 AD ones. I'm quite a fan of the 2000 AD comics generally, but those are the only kind of collected anything I've got of 2000 AD. There's a lens glare going on there, by the way. Fiddle with the lamp once again. There we go. Yeah, I've got a very high-tech solution of having a bit of extra lighting. I've got a desk lamp down on this side, so it doesn't look quite so dark on my face, but it involves angles, I think, into the... it's just sat on the chair, on the floor next to my chair, so it's very high-tech. We're all about the production values here at Studio PointyHairedJedi. Right, so that's kind of 2 series-ish that I've mentioned, and the Judge Dredd one alone, I mean, that is, what, 15, 16, 20 volumes? I don't even know what that's up to right now, but the last, well, I've got 2 more kind of definites and then an honourable mention, and it's not really filling Terry's list of 10, but there's a couple others I can think of that would definitely go on the list. So V for Vendetta is my next choice, and I would say V for Vendetta and actually both this and Watchmen would definitely be on the list. And I actually have, let's see if I can get on the page, I've actually got a copy that's signed by David Lloyd. How cool is that? This is actually a friend got this for me, a present. And yeah, so I've never actually met David Lloyd. That would be kind of cool. But I think it's a good story. The film was okay. I mean, it was passable. It seems to have more of a following than I think it should, to be honest. But if I had to choose between V for Vendetta and Watchmen, I'd probably go for Watchmen pretty much every time. But V for Vendetta is still really good as well. So next up is I've only got a couple of these. I'd like the full set, but Transmetropolitan by Warren Ellis and drawn by Derek Robertson. And Warren Ellis is quite a big name in comics. You know, I know people that do comics things, and I've never been really into my comics, but I know people who have said, yeah, well, I'll recommend you this and I'll recommend you that. And my mum in particular has got a bunch of like graphic novels and stuff on her shelves. So I really enjoy the humour. I enjoy the little cameos. There's one bit where there's Tubbs and Edward from the League of Gentlemen. What is it? Extraordinary. No, that is a graphic novel, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Just the League of Gentlemen. They actually just make a weird cameo at one point, and it's just full of I don't know. I love Spider Jerusalem as a character. He's just amazing. Others that I would definitely think about, the John Constantine series, which I think that's actually been made into a TV show. I don't know if the show's any good, but I've read a bunch of those. Those were quite enjoyable. I expect everyone's expecting me to say Sandman. I kind of have mixed feelings about Neil Gaiman's Sandman. I don't know. It just didn't grab me. I mean, everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's the best thing in graphic novels," and I'm just like, well, it's interesting in a way, I suppose. It didn't grab me, and I kind of like some of Gaiman's work, but I'm not. I don't know. I never got the Kool-Aid delivered in the post. That he's all right sometimes, and other times it's like, yeah, okay, I can just leave this because I'm not particularly being entertained right now. But yeah, Sandman was one of those where it was like, yeah, it's got some interesting bits, but yeah. I don't think I even ever finished them all. I read most of them, partly through borrowing them off people, and I think I even got a few through the library, but this is going back a couple of years as well. But just didn't grab me. And then I'm actually going to look one up right now because I'm struggling to remember the name. I think it's The Preacher. Yes, The Preacher. And again, Garth Ennis, and drawn by Steve Dillon, who notable for his work on 2000 AD at various points as well. And I read the whole lot, and this was a cousin of mine who I think I progressively borrowed them from, and I've just like the collected, again, like, you know, trade paperbacks, I guess you'd call them, rather than graphic novels. But I just thought the sheer balls of the series was quite entertaining, and some of the characters were really good, and some of the plot twists and whatever. And Featherstone and what was the other guy's? What's his face? The more mild-mannered guy, but they're fairly minor characters, but I always really enjoyed their moments. And I think that's about it as far as the kind of proper ones go. But I wanted to give, this is again from my shelf, some of the collected Doctor Who comics from Doctor Who magazine over the years, and I wouldn't necessarily take these to my wrong side, Desert Island, but they're notable because a lot of people that went on to be big names in comics actually started, this is where they got their start, was drawing and writing for Doctor Who magazine and doing the comics. And the comics themselves are all right, but the actual stories are a bit silly, but the art is way over the quality of what you would expect for you hear, comics in Doctor Who magazine, and you think, okay, it's probably not very good. But a lot of big names, like I said, a lot of big names, Steve Mills and Steve Moore and Garth Ennis, maybe? I'm not quite sure, but I think even Stan Lee's been involved at various points. So yeah, there's a lot of like weirdly big names that started off doing Doctor Who comics, even though Doctor Who comics aren't that well known. So yeah, I've got a couple of those volumes as well, but I wouldn't necessarily take them to my island. So I hope that answers your question, Terry, even though I couldn't quite think of 10, but there are some, even though I'm not really a big consumer of comics and graphic novels, you know, there are some very good ones that I have read that, you know, stick in the memory. So yeah. So next question, I think. Dasquid352 asks, in a all caps way, do you like cats and cap locks? Which is, of course, how you read anything that's written in caps locks. Cats, yes. Cap locks make me go, why are you shouting at me? Well, I don't think that was an entirely serious question. But yeah, cats. I'm a fan of cats. I like cats. And I like dogs as well. My parents have got a pair of nice Labradors. I'm sure I've talked about them previously. I might even have shown pictures. In fact, there's one of the videos you can see from my on my channel. If you go onto, I think it's like the miscellaneous playlist, and it's one of the very first videos I uploaded way before I started doing game stuff, and we're talking like years before. And that's just because I never intended my channel to become a, you know, what it is now. But it is one of my parents' dogs, now sadly deceased, who was mad about hosepipes and water generally, and she's just, yeah, going a bit nuts with a hosepipe. And then it was also with one of my parents' labs, and she was fairly young at that point, but she was not quite sure of, you know, she saw the other dog enjoying it and thought she'd have a go as well, and then yeah. So, but I enjoy both cats and dogs. In fact, I think I mentioned as well previously, rats as pets. You know, fancy rats. You don't obviously have sewer rats as pets, but no. I've lived in houses with varieties of animals over the years, and there we go. That was actually quite a sort of sensible answer for a not very sensible question. So yeah. HSM English, in response to one of my answers from a previous video, asks, well, it's not really, well, it's kind of a question, but it's sort of more of a comment than a question, but it has question marks, so it counts out. He says, are you telling us that the reason you are into the AMX40 is the looks? Really? I can just smell the incredulity. It's just the all-round package, but yeah, I mean, come on, it's cute though. It's the AMX40, it's cute. You just want to pet it and feed it breadcrumbs and, you know, let it paddle around in the pond at the bottom of your garden. It's so cute. Come on, man, it's cute. It's cute. Relic 5, and some of these are just, I've decided I'm just going to read out some comments because there's not that many actual questions to answer, to be honest, but he says Switzerland would be healthier, and this was in response to me talking about languages. Probably, I'm sure there was a question about Gallic in the last one, it must have been that. We have to learn 2 Swiss languages and a foreign language, and the Swiss-German dialect has some big differences to German. I would... It's one of these things though, if you're brought up somewhere, you might struggle a bit maybe, but exposure to languages from an early age, the very easiest way to learn a language is to be exposed from an early age and just grow up hearing it and learning it that way and just having it all around you and being surrounded by it. It's coming to it later in life is way harder just because of the way our brains work basically. So maybe if I'd grown up somewhere where multilingualism was a thing, I would have less trouble with picking up other languages, but on the other hand, maybe not. Maybe that's just the way my brain works, so yeah. Doing It Legit asks, what are my PC specs and what do I use to record and edit my videos? I am certain I've mentioned PC specs previously, but I can tell you off the top of my head, I'll flash them up on screen or something, but it's an R290 AMD graphics card. Unfortunately, I made the mistake, which apparently you shouldn't do, of buying one with a stock cooler setup, so it's only got one cooling fan, and that's a bit of a gaffe apparently, because the stock cooler's not very good. So yeah, it gets quite noisy at times. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. If you're going to buy one, and I'm told it's a good card, get one with more fans on it, basically. I might, at some point, if there is a specific aftermarket cooling kit for that card, might go and get one, but what I equally might do is just cop out buy a new card at some point and then have the one I've got as a backup in case the new one just goes disastrously wrong. So yeah, I mean it works, it's fine, it's just it probably gets hotter than it necessarily should because it's just got the the stock crappy cooler is what I was trying to say, yes. Like my brain, apparently. Junior Laws commented, how about we reach a certain amount of subs and Jedi buys the tier 10 British arty? Did the caption guy put you up to that? That's just... Why would you say that, man? That's just cruel. To illustrate why, I mean, I've said it over and over again, I'm not playing it for fun. Today's attempt at getting my artillery daily for the tier 9 British arty consisted of 3 teams in a row, where not only could our teams not find their arses with an atlas, but RNG trolled me so hard that I had, I think, out of those 3 games, I had 3 shells that actually did any damage. And then the win, which was even better, was a game on Hidden Village where I got counter-artied in the first minute. And it was a lucky shot for the other guy because I was driving forward. I mean, it was a hell of a shot. He was obviously watching to counter-arty. But I shot and then moved, as you're supposed to do in artillery, and apparently drove right into his shell. Like, if I'd stayed put, I probably would have had a better chance of living. Or if I'd reversed. I've been told reversing's a worse idea, because of course you reverse slower. But if I'd reversed or stayed still, I probably would have lived. Instead, I drove forward into the shell, died doing no damage, and of course the enemy team got ruffle stomped, and that was my daily. So that was like 40 or 50 minutes of tank playing where I just ended up wanting to slam my head into the desk repeatedly. So yeah, no, it's fun though, artillery playing, so much fun. I mean, never mind that you can sit and aim at stationary targets, tracked targets, fully aimed and still miss by a country mile and do 0 damage. I can't wait to sell this thing, I really can't. So yeah, no, it would take a hell of a lot of persuasion to get me to buy the tier 10. I mean, the misses wouldn't matter so much because of the massive splash radius, but on the other hand, it would mean giving up any last shreds of you know, my soul that might remain at this point. So yeah, no, I don't think that's gonna happen somehow. Chaos Potato asks, what other games do I play? Well, you get to see some of them on the channel, although obviously I can't show all the games I play because you have to look up whether the publisher gives permission or not. Sometimes it's ambiguous, sometimes it's just flat out no. But yeah, there are other cases where I could probably show the footage perfectly fine, but it probably wouldn't be very interesting to watch. So yeah, I mean, the thing with showing other games on the channel is because of my sometimes patchy schedule, and sometimes because I struggle to get stuff uploaded. I'm sure you all know of my OP internet at this point. Getting a schedule where I can keep up the amount of tanks content that I'd like to have and the additional content is not really that possible. I mean, it's difficult enough trying to remember as it is to keep the various series rolling. Like, I did, what was it, 2 or 3 Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri videos a while back, and then kind of forgot about it for a while, and then decided actually, no, with the amount of other stuff I've got going on at the moment, I probably couldn't squeeze those in as well. And I would like to do more FTL at some point, but again, finding the time with the upload schedule to actually squeeze those in, a bit tricky, but that's a little easier with FTL because those files compress down really well for actually uploading. So, but yeah, as to what games I actually like to play, I can tell you what I'm playing at the moment. I mean, it varies over time, but World of Tanks and War Thunder, of course, a bit of Fractured Space. I have gone back into Skyrim. In fact, I got a whole bunch of mods and stuff. I mean, I was playing. You've seen. I mean, going back to. I did some Skyrim videos a while back as well, but I stopped those for other reasons. The amount of mods I was using was relatively minor. I've probably doubled about the amount of mods that I'm actually using at this point, and I even had to go at fiddling around with these things called ENBs, which nobody's quite sure what ENB stands for, but it's basically a way of customizing the look of the game in terms of light and shadow and color and the various anti-aliasing options and the I don't even know how deep it goes or how complex it gets, but I spent about an hour and a half trying to set up an EMB that I fancied the look of, and the game just repeatedly crashed, so I gave up on that idea entirely. But yeah, that's the thing with EMBs. They're not, you can't just, you know, run and install and hey presto, you've got an EMB installed. No, it requires following quite a detailed list of instructions, which I did follow, and then backtracked on to see where I'd possibly made a mistake. Couldn't see where I'd made a mistake, and at that point just gave up. So yeah, there are modded Skyrim is quite an interesting, like it adds a lot, and some of them are a bit silly, like, you know, Star Wars lightsabers, but yeah, so I've gotten back into that a bit. Been playing CK2 and not really that much EU4 though, but I did get the latest CK2 Way of Life expansion. Some interesting stuff in there, and it's not particularly expensive, which is always nice. And otherwise, I don't think there's been that much lately. Like, in between those games, it takes up enough time, and the streaming, and recording and editing, and all the other things, and, you know, occasionally leaving the house. It's kind of tough to shoehorn more games in there. And Ginge has actually, he's donated me enough money that I can go and buy Elite Dangerous now that that's out, and I'm going to go and buy it, and I'm going to download it, and then probably not play it that much, just because finding the time to do it and fit everything in there is a bit tricky at the moment. I've got Star Citizen as well, and I really haven't played that much of it, because obviously at the moment it's just the dogfighting module, and I think there's like a racing mode now as well, but it's just finding the time to sit down and do it and like learn the various ins and outs of the game, because my brain can only hold so much at the same at one time apparently. So yeah, so that's some of the games I've been playing. I would like to show more games on the channel, but partly it's time, partly it's just my OP internet. But hopefully, I mean, I actually read in the local local news website that in the next, I think, 2 or 3 months, probably more like 2 than 3, but BT is putting in the actual the cabinets and fibre going to the cabinets, so they're starting to roll out the fibre infrastructure in various bits of the island, including near where I am, and then we'll see how long it takes for actual domestic fibre to appear at that point. And I still don't know if it's going to be fibre to the cabinet with, you know, ordinary copper from that point, or if it's going to be fibre to the home, which would be the ideal solution for my point of view. But it is going to be, you know, I'm hoping 2015. Like, if it's longer than, if it takes longer than 12 months, then that's going to be a bit ridiculous, frankly. But, you know, it might get better, and faster uploads will help me immensely, because it means if I screw something up, it's not a whole day's upload wasted. It means it's maybe only an hour or 2 wasted instead. So yeah, that is going to help me out so much. So looking forward to that. Sudros asks, have I read the Terry Goodkind books, the Sword of Truth series, and is Capturing Guy really that bad? Well, to answer your second question first, yes, 1,000 times yes. Have you read some of the things he writes about me on screen? He's a jerk. He is like the ultimate jerk. He's just the jerkiest. But to answer your original question, Terry Goodkind, I know of Terry Goodkind. I might even have read something by him at some point, but there's nothing particularly that comes to mind. I mean, if I have, it's been a while ago, but I don't think I've read that series. But I'll tell you what I have been reading the last couple of months, and this is just since September. I went back and started from the beginning in the Song of Fire and Ice series. And that is books 1 to 4 actually comprise, what, 5 volumes? Is it book 3 that's split into 2 bits? And then book 4's kind of like, it's contiguous with the first part of book 5 anyway. So I've actually borrowed, and I mentioned this in my Crusader Kings 2 video that I was going to borrow. So I'm on to now the first one of book 5, A Dance with Dragons, which is, what's the subtitle of this? Dreams and Dust. So I've literally just started that. There's only I'm only a couple of pages in right now. So that's probably, between this and the next volume, that's probably like the next month and a half's reading sorted out. But yeah, I was actually looking at, I can't even remember what I was looking at, calendar or something the other day, and I realised that, you know, it's been a while where I've literally just been reading the Game of Thrones series, the Song of Fire and Ice books, just from book 1 to book, you know, 5 now. It's a long haul, and I'm sure it took him, well, I know it took him even longer, many times longer to write it all. So yeah, it's funny, he's gone to he keeps saying things like, well, I was going to do 7 books, but you know, the characters just keep doing interesting things. Yeah, I do worry about Mr. Martin sometimes. You know, they're clearly they're clearly getting away from him. They're you know, whispering things in the night, and he's like, oh damn it, I was gonna do this and this, and then they're all doing these things instead. Oh, if only there was some way of controlling all these characters I've created. But yeah, it is great though. I mean, the first couple of books, like, it does seem to change in character a bit, sort of book 4 and book 5, but that's partly because he splits the narrative up. And he actually said at the beginning of book 4, and he says again at the beginning of book 5, that there's some characters you just don't see in book 4, you see very little of them. And he decided that he was gonna, like I said, have the first parts kind of contiguous but split by location. So book 4 is all about the stuff that's going on more around King's Landing, whereas book 5 is all more stuff that's going on around in the north and around the wall. So yeah, we'll see. I'm sure there are a lot of characters where there are like little hints and things that you hear in book 4, and it's like other people mentioning things happening to Davos Seaworth is a very good example. I won't spoil anything, but you do hear at one point something's happened to him, and you're like, oh, okay. And then there's other characters where you just don't hear anything. So really curious to see what's happened with some of these people. That you know. Anyway, on to the next question, I think, before I just start rambling on for the next 10 minutes about a Game of Thrones, because it's quite good. It's quite good. FD McKay says, all hail Caption Guy, Emperor of the Rimworlds. Really? Really? Well, if you want him as your Type 59 dispensing overlord, then sure, by all means, you know, just don't come crying to me when you're all even in worse conditions than you are now down Jingles' salt mines. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. This is Caption Guy we're talking about here. Gerloff Postuma, I probably pronounced that slightly wrong, but you know, I could do what Jingles does and say, Dave asks, I at least like to give it a go, you know. Wargaming is currently supporting the restoration of a mouse, and I haven't actually heard any news about that lately, so I don't know, there's a bit of politics going on there, but because of course it's the German tank, and with current things going on in Russia, well, but he says, as a mouse driver, am I following that project? Well, when the news pops up, yes. And am I planning to go and see it when it's done? I would love to see that monster moving in real life. That would be freaking awesome. But, well, for one thing, it's probably not going to happen for a very long time. A restoration of that project, you're probably talking a timescale of years, probably. And for another thing, if it meant travelling to the Kublinka Museum in Russia, well, I can just about afford to travel to the mainland Scotland. Travelling to Russia might be a bit more difficult, so. But you know, if it's years before it happens, then by the time it happens, yeah, that might be interesting. Just to visit Kublinka generally, but also to see the mouse in particular. But an actual mouse, that would be interesting. Urban Tarzander asks, "Are you a big pussy?" As in, are you scared easily? Are you into horror movies, games and books? Honestly, I'm going to say no. I mean, I don't think I do particularly get scared easily. Horror as a genre, I don't really like, especially books. I've read some supposedly quite scary books or atmospheric books. They just don't. I mean, they're meant to like build up an atmosphere and make you feel a certain way, and it just doesn't seem to work on me. I don't know why. Like I've read, what was it? Oh, The Woman in White or something like that, and somebody said, "Oh, you should read this. It's quite spooky," and I've read a couple of M.R. James stories, and they're like, well, you know, interesting stories, but they're not spooky. You know, I didn't really think it was kind of like at any point. So yeah. And as for films and whatnot, well, something like Alien Isolation might make me jump a couple of times, but it's I don't know. I get games are better at tension, and films maybe to some extent as well. But when I see, I mean, I've seen some kind of like straight up horror films and things like Alien, and I'm trying to think what else. Oh, there was that Neil what's his face film. I've seen one or two of those. But the one I'm thinking of particularly is the one where there's the woman in the cave, and it was like, yeah, that was an interesting film, and it was, you know, kind of you know, orcs basically, but it didn't really make me jump so much. So I don't know. I don't seem to do scary in a way that I don't enjoy scary. So it doesn't particularly work on me, and I don't quite know why. But yeah. So occasionally jumpy, maybe, but scared, not really. No. I'd be kind of tempted to do Alien Isolation with a you know, what we're seeing right now, a cam, and I can just like see if it does actually, you know, do anything or not. I'm trying to think of any games or anything ever where I've been. I've got nothing. I've got nothing. No, I can think of games where I've been tense, but never scared. No, no. Apparently not. Apparently I'm not a big pussy. So. Carlito Skater 89 asks, "Do I think, as the scouting way taken by WG, obviously this video, the previous one, previous Q&D was not that long after the new scouts had come out, and I think I've talked about them some. But do I think the T50-2 is coming back? Sadly, no, no. I think it's just going to be a glorious distant memory. But some of the new Tier 8 scouts have turned out to be pretty good machines. I mean, the Walker Bulldog has very rapidly built up a fan base. The RU251's got its fans. I've seen less people driving the T54 lightweight. I'm sure it's okay, but it seems to mostly be the American and the German that have really got the dedicated players now. And you go and watch somebody like Zevon, who's got a YouTube channel where he does lots of tactics and things, and you'll see he plays a lot of these tanks, and they're kind of like, they're almost sort of ultra lightweight mediums more than light tanks, and that's how they play them. You know, they're fairly aggressive. And then you've got, of course, the T49, which is just, you know, derp. It's just small but derp. And of course that's going to have its fans as well. But yeah, no, I still don't have any of those, by the way. I think I'm still the furthest on. I'm trying to think what line. I don't think I've even progressed beyond Tier 6 on any of them. No, I haven't been playing them in any kind of dedicated way. In fact, the closest to a Tier 8 scout I am at the moment is 1390. I'm actually not that far off having the 1390 unlocked from the 1375 after grinding the 1375 for a very, very long time on a very, very inconsistent basis. So, yeah, scouts, I'll get there eventually, but it might take a while, especially as the new British Tank Destroyer line has come out, because I think if I can get the British Arty knocked on the head, and I will probably then concentrate on the new TD line, and they look like there are some very good machines on that particular line, so yeah. Plug-in Meerkat asks, "If I ever caught Caption Guy, what would be the punishment for his insolence?" He then says no physical torture or killing allowed. Oh. Just had to spoil the... Why do you have to ruin that question, man? Why did you... What? I mean, I could say, oh, I'll give him a stern talking to. I'm not sure that would really make any difference. I mean, the ideal answer would be I would I would strap him to a chair and make him watch hours upon hours of Barney the Purple Dancing Dinosaur on endless repeat on VHS, so we can enjoy that grainy 90s quality. But I think that would probably count as torture, so I can't think of a single answer that doesn't involve doing bad things to Capture Guy. I really can't. I really can't. So I'm sorry. That's just the best answer you're gonna get. I can't probably answer that one at all. Yeah. That Capture Guy though. Marink092 asks again a couple of questions, but I'm gonna answer his second one, which is, have I ever been so annoyed that I have you know, hit something or sworn or whatever on the live stream? Even with the artillery games I was playing before, where I was tempted to repeatedly bang my head into the desk. I mean, usually if I get to that stage, I just take a break, or if I'm on the stream and I'm having a string of awful games, you can kind of tell, because sometimes I just go very, very quiet. And it's either because I'm not feeling particularly like voluble that particular day, or else I'm just not struggling to contain the rage, because I'm not. It's just the urge to be super pessimistic would just override all other things, and usually if I'm having a bad streak of games, you know, sometimes it's bad RNG, but most of the time it's my own, you know, crapulence at work. So yeah, I've actually done a whole video on sort of coping with frustration in this game, and my main strategy is just usually to walk away, take a break, do something else. But sometimes you know, I will adopt a certain mindset, like if I'm grinding for a particular thing or whatever, it's just like, well, doesn't matter if that was a win or a loss, but I got X number of kills towards my goal, you know, whatever the mission is. So yeah, thinking about things differently can help as well. But yeah, I would recommend going and watching that video. I think it was on my What Tank playlist, so you can find that one. But yeah, I don't think I've ever been that annoyed that I've really... no, I've never just really gone off on one, but I might have occasionally let slip a choice obscenity when RNG trolled me at a particular, you know, a real crunch moment, or when I trolled myself at a real crunch moment. Occasionally I have thrown games away. It happens, but not that often. So yeah, most of the time I pretty much enjoy myself playing this game, but it's not 100% always the time. And the last question under the comments for the last video is, since the 15k subs contest, or 15k subs and a bit more to give it its full official title, was for EU and NA only, do I plan on making any? Well, I'm gonna sort of answer it in terms of, you know, for future contests. I think for future contests, it's difficult because gifting stuff across servers outside of, like, EU and NA, it's a bit easier, but the payment options available to gift someone something on their SEA server, for instance, it is actually a real pain. And I actually tried to do this in a previous contest, and I had someone that was a winner on the SEA server, and the faff I had to go through, I had to sign up for about 3 different things before I found one that would actually, you know, work, that I could actually pay. And then it involved finding a local shop where I could buy a particular voucher for a particular thing, and then I actually had to go and ask for the manager to get this particular voucher, because apparently they don't usually, like, even though it is technically available, they don't usually sell them. And you actually have to talk to the manager to do it, because it is horrendously open to like people fraudulently, like, apparently the particular scam was that they would like try and buy it over the phone, and they'd go, oh yeah, just read that code back to me, and then they'd have the code that was worth the money, and they could just cancel their credit card charge or whatever. So yeah, the whole thing was just such a faff. So in future, what I might well do is experiment in the next contest, whenever that is, probably another, like, however many tens of thousands of subs away. I might do like Steam codes or something of that nature, something that's not to do with World of Tanks at all, even though obviously this is content-wise very heavily World of Tanks based channel. Not entirely, but you know, like 2/3 of my videos easily are World of Tanks videos. Yeah, it would be nice to give people stuff from, you know, across any server, but the practicalities of it are such that it gets increasingly difficult the further away you're trying to give stuff. And I can understand, I mean, Wargaming's just trying to protect themselves from people doing stuff fraudulently, basically, but even as somebody with a channel, you can't, there's no kind of super special, like, YouTuber exceptions or anything, which is a bit like even Ray Lin giving out the contest prizes last time. The very last contest prize, the would have been the tier 10 winner. He actually had to send the money to me via PayPal so that I could give the person their prize, because if you give too many prizes out to people at once, your account kind of gets like Wargaming blocks you from sending any more stuff. So yeah. So unless I actually had the one exception I can think of, and this would be heavily dependent on Wargaming themselves, is next time around if they gave me some actual codes to give away, rather than me or somebody else footing the bill for prizes bought ourselves. At which point they would in theory work across any server. So that would be a thing, but it entirely depends on Wargaming. So maybe there's a vague outside possibility that I might be able to give away World of Tanks prizes in the next thing, but it might end up being Steam or something instead. So yeah. So that was the last question. If you had any to ask for next time, and hopefully I won't forget for 2.5 months, hopefully it won't be mid-February. You ask them in the comments section below. This is going to be all one video, I think, just looking at the recording time. Mark it with a big question in front of the actual question you want to ask, because sometimes it's not entirely clear if something is an actual question or not, and I might not answer every single question that gets asked, and if you ask multiple questions, well, I'll probably just pick one, although I might pick more if they amuse me. You know, serious questions and silly questions are both welcome, but yeah. Otherwise, you can do the usual things. You can hit the like button, you can leave any non-question comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and, as always, have a Merry Christmas!